Hi everyone, welcome to Knitting with Clouds. This is the first episode. My name is Anne. You can find me on Ravelry as knittingwclouds. Unfortunately, Knitting with Clouds is one character too long for a Ravelry username. I decided to start making this podcast for a lot of reasons that other podcasters have stated in their first episode, one of which is I don't really know that many people who knit or crochet, or I don't feel like I can talk to someone who likes that stuff in my proximity. And although there are knitting groups in my area, they're not always at the most convenient times, and sometimes I can't make it at the times that they're meeting. So I decided to do this podcast to try to get more in touch with this community. I started crochet about 6 months ago, I think, at the time of this recording. And I started knitting about I'd say 3 or 4 months ago. I started with crochet and I really liked it, but I ran out of free patterns that I was interested in using. So one of my friends generously lent me a couple of her knitting needles, and I learned how to knit. And I'm still getting used to knitting. I don't quite enjoy it as much as crochet at the moment, but I'm hoping that's going to change once I get used to it. So I was thinking we could just dive right into the things that I have to show you guys. So, works in progress. I'm working on a scarf at the moment. This is actually like the 5th or 6th time I've recorded this first episode. I got it right, pretty much right the last time, but I noticed that I showed the wrong hat, so I decided to just do it all over. So my only work in progress at the moment, or for knitting, is this scarf. It's the honeycomb mesh scarf from Church Mouse Yarns and Tees. It's a free pattern. You can find it on Ravelry, but it links you to a different site where you actually get the pattern. And it's a pretty simple pattern. It's a 4-row repeat. And there have been some mistakes with this scarf. One of which is when I was supposed to knit, slip, knit, slip, knit. So basically knit, slip, repeat. But then what I did was knit, slip, 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 knit. Apparently I missed that one knit in the middle. So I don't know if you can see it, but it's right in this area. And to any other person who's just walking by, it's probably not that noticeable. It's not that noticeable. I would be very surprised if someone noticed that just walking past me. But it's very noticeable to me. And by the time I noticed it, I was about an inch on, and I didn't want to rip out my work since I already ripped it out several times that day, because I had actually reversed the back and the front. So the back looks like this. and then I somehow got it mixed up with the front. And I had to rip that out because that was a lot more noticeable. So once I noticed this mistake that I just showed you, I decided to just keep going, and I basically looked at it. I was like, you stay there until I get the time and the patience to deal with you. And I'm not really sure how I'm going to try to fix it, but I'm just gonna leave that for when I finish the scarf. And I'm making this scarf out of this yarn. Which is Manos Lace by Manos del Uruguay. And here's the label. So it's 70% baby alpaca, 25% silk, 5% cashmere. And it's in the beautiful color L2590. There probably is some name associated with it, but they just decided not to put it on there. Because I've been on the website for this company, and they do have proper names for their yarn. But for some reason on the label, they decided not to include that. And it's a really nice yarn, probably because of all the materials that were used to make it. I was pretty excited about this because it's the first really nice yarn that I've bought. I mean, prior to this, I've mostly been working with acrylic, cotton. I made a scarf for one of my friends, and that had some alpaca, but it was sort of I think it was an alpaca acrylic blend. So there was no silk, and this one has silk and cashmere, and it's really nice. I'm really enjoying working with it. But I'm actually, the pattern calls for, I think, possibly size 8 needles, I think. And this is a fingering weight. Lace weight, sorry. This is a lace weight, but it calls for a size 8 needle. And I actually changed it to a size 4. I don't know what's the millimeter equivalent of it, but it's a US size 4. I'm using a US size 4. And the reason for that is because I was watching Andre Sue Knits, the podcast, and Andy, the host of that podcast, had mentioned that she had some problems with some of her alpaca sweaters where they tended to stretch out over time and with use. So I decided that I would try to mitigate that by going down several needle sizes, and I cast on for a wrap, and as you can see at the moment, it looks more like a shawl. Well, a scarf, I mean. It looks more like a scarf. So in the event that it does stretch out, at least it'll look more like it's supposed to. And I'll be able to continue enjoying it without thinking that it looks a little wonky. I do enjoy working with this yarn, but it's sort of like how Diary of a Yarn Snob, the host says that she's also, I was watching the earlier episodes, and she was saying that scarves tend to go on, and I feel for knitting that it's especially true. I'm just past a quarter of the scarf, I think, and I am very eager to get through with it. Partially because I'm looking forward to wearing it before before the weather turns warm again, but also because it's taking forever. Also, having to rip it out so many times doesn't help. I've got another work in progress that I'm not going to show you guys because I'm not really that enthusiastic about it. It's one of those projects that's sort of an obligation. I mean, it's for a friend, but I'm not really into the pattern, and I'm hoping that I'll get into it as the project goes on, but at the moment it's sort of like a chore. So I don't really want to talk about it further than that, so I don't want to show it to you guys. So moving on to finished objects. The first one I have to show you is this blanket back here. I finished it recently, and I'm very glad because it was languishing for a very long time. I had started it about, I would say, 4 or 5 months ago. Then I stopped because I just wanted to try out some other things, and I just got bored with it, especially because it's a blanket and it's pretty large. It turned out pretty nice. I liked the pattern. It was a pretty easy pattern. The only thing that I didn't like was my fault. I didn't buy enough yarn to get it to the size that I wanted, so it turned out adequately long, but not as wide as I would like it. So at the moment I call it a blanket, but it's really a throw, and that's what I use it as. I use it either as a throw or as a very large shawl when I'm sitting on the sofa or when I'm at my computer. And I think, I can't remember what's the pattern's called, but I found it on the blog Lacy Crochet, and it's a free pattern, so if you're interested, it's probably pretty easy to find. The second finished object that I want to talk to you guys about, I don't actually have with me. I have already gifted it to my friend. She was leaving for the holidays, and I wanted to get it to her before Christmas was over. So she's a fan of the Zelda game franchise, and I made her Link's scarf from Hyrule Warriors. I'll try to insert a picture of the scarf from the game if I remember. And that was when I was about 2 or 3 months into crochet, and at the time I didn't know a lot about crochet. I still don't know a lot about crochet, so I didn't know there's a crust, the Hyrule crust, that is on the scarf, and I still don't know how to get designs onto crochet in an easy manner. So I just left it out of the scarf. But my friend liked it anyway, and I'm really glad because there was a lot of drama that went into that scarf. First, I had to figure out how to make the scarf, because I actually just sort of made it up on my own. I didn't base it off of a pattern. And so I made the scarf. I figured out how to do the different colors, the stripes. And if you look at the scarf, there's actually like this triangular thing that comes down. The scarf looks like a mixture between a scarf and a kerchief, if you wear a kerchief around your neck. I think that's what it's called. Or if you think of a triangular shawl and then a small triangular shawl and you tie that around your neck, that's what the triangular part looks like. And but then it's also a scarf, so I wasn't really sure how to handle that. And I also wasn't sure if my friend would actually go around wearing that if I made a scarf with a triangular part. So what I did was I actually just made the scarf, the length of the scarf, and then I made a separate triangular part, and I plan to attach the two. So that was pretty frustrating because I am new to crochet. And when I got that done, I bought some buttons, and then I thought they were big enough. I got home, I tried it, they weren't big enough. So I went back to Joann's, which is where I got the buttons, and I brought the scarf with me, and then I, slipped it over the buttons in the store to check that, it looked like it was big enough. And then I found some buttons, I bought them, brought them home, tried it. They still weren't big enough, and I went back to the store, and then I got these large buttons that looked like they were almost too large, and brought them home, and they just fit, and they just hold everything in place. So I'm glad that worked out, even though I still have lots of buttons and not much to do with them. Buttons. But yeah, so that happened, and then after that, I attached the two pieces. I looked in the mirror because I was trying it on myself, and I didn't like the way that it looked. It's just one of those midway points where you just fall out of love with your project if you've worked on it long enough. I don't know if you guys have experienced that, but that's what I was experiencing at the time. And I just looked at it and I was just thinking how ugly it looked. And I was just so frustrated that I just took it apart, stuffed it in a box, and forgot about it until I absolutely had to get it finished with and to give it to my friend before she left for the holidays. Yeah, and the last bit of drama with that scarf is that if you look at the scarf in the game, it's held together in the back instead of just being, looped around the neck. It's actually held at the back with a button, and it is a silverish metallic square button that looks like a shank button, and that would be the only button that I thought would be appropriate for the scarf that I was making for my friend, because all the other, the flat buttons, I guess, I don't know what those are called. Those, I didn't really think that they would hold quite as well or look quite as good, with the scarf. So I spent a while looking for a square, silverish, metallic shank button. And it took me forever, but I finally did find it at the Joann's. And I bought just one because I was like, this is a nice button, but I'm probably not gonna do anything with it. And also I have tons of buttons at home now because of my past purchase failures. So I decided not to buy a second one, which was a mistake, I think. I gave the scarf to my friend. When I attached the square button, it fit perfectly. It was just the right size so that it wasn't too hard to get it out of the scarf, but it also wouldn't fall out. The problem was that I wanted it to be repositionable, so what I did was I sewed it to an extra button that I had, one of the larger buttons. I sewed those two together so you could just stick them in and then just take out the button whenever you wanted to reposition it. But then because the other button just barely fits the scarf, sometimes it has, if you just nudge it the right way, even accidentally, it has a tendency to pop out. So I was thinking that, you know, if I had bought a second one, I could have sewn those two together and then just have, it has a reversible double-sided button that's also repositionable. But I went back to the Joann's, and I went to various Joann's around here, and they were sold out. And I went online and onto the Joann's store, and I couldn't find it on there either, and I think the button's been discontinued, which is a real disappointment because I was thinking about making another link scarf, this time knitting, because I found a pattern, a knitting pattern on Ravelry. And I have another friend who's also into the Zelda franchise, and I wanted to make a scarf for her as well. Not for Christmas because that would be too late, but yeah, and I was thinking, you know, I could go back and get another button. I was just gathering all the materials, but I couldn't find the button, and I don't want to buy a button online. I prefer to do, after my experience with button shopping, I prefer to do my shopping in person. Yeah, so I've looked around at the stores around where I live. They don't have any buttons of the right material or color or design or size that would be appropriate for the scarf. So what I'm thinking now is that if I don't find another button, my friend's just gonna get the scarf without the button. I mean, I don't really want to go out of my way too much, and I don't want to have to pay, you know, a whole lot of money just for a button. And I don't think my friend's not the kind of person to worry about things like that. I think she'll love the scarf even without it. Alright, second to last finished object that I have to show you is this. I'm not really sure what to call it. It's sort of like a wall hanging of... I don't have anything to hold it up against. So you're just gonna try and see it as best as you can. Maybe this will help. So, if you can't tell, it's the TARDIS. I made one of these things for my friend to hang on her wall because she really likes Doctor Who. She has a lot of Doctor Who themed items. She painted a teapot with a Dalek, and it's really cute. So I made her one of these, and I made one for myself because I thought I would like one, and because I also like Doctor Who. And I made this I should tell you the pattern, just to give credit. It's the Wibbly Wobbly Timey Wimey pattern, filet crochet, by Nick Whitehead, Nikwhitehead. It's another free pattern on Ravelry. I made this using Aunt Lydia's, let me see if I can find the label. Aunt Lydia's Classic Crochet 10, I think it's called, something like that. And I bought the jumbo size balls. I originally purchased this because back when I was starting out with crochet about 5 months ago, I was thinking that I would crochet a tablecloth or a table runner for one of my friends. But The thing is, I got this huge ball of crochet thread, and I think the pattern I was looking at had required at least like 1,000 yards of crochet thread, and this is about 2,000 yards. And when I got this ball, I realized just how ambitious that plan would be. So I decided to nix that plan. Instead, I decided to make her some doilies. The doilies didn't get finished in time for Christmas. I'm gonna gift them to her after Christmas it's just one last doily left, and I'm all doilied out. I made so many doilies. Partially because I don't want to be stuck with this gigantic ball of crochet thread, but also because I wanted to make some doilies for my friend. But I just have one last doily to do, and sorry about that, guys. My camera ran out of memory and I had to transfer the previous segment onto my computer. But yeah, as I was saying, this is the last doily that I am making for my friend. I actually got up to row 12 of 17, but then I noticed that I had made a mistake in this outer row right here, so I had to rip it all the way back. And that just left me extremely discouraged. So it's just sitting right now. I'm gonna get it finished, hopefully before the end of the year, but no guarantees. And the last thing I have to show you for finished objects is this hat. And I finished this hat a while ago, and the only reason I'm really showing you this hat is because it leads into stash. So what I'm thinking about doing for stash is that since I don't buy yarn very frequently. I'm the kind of person who buys yarn to suit a project, and instead of buying yarn first and then finding a project to use it for. I don't buy a lot of yarn. So I was thinking that I could just work through what I have right now, show you a little bit at a time, and try to pace myself that way so I have some things to talk about in future episodes. So I made this hat using this yarn. This is, let's see if I can remember. The label's in there, but I don't want to take it out because I'm not sure if I can get it back in. I think this is Cascade Ultra Pima, in possibly white or natural. I'm not really sure which one it is. And it's a really, really soft yarn. Since it is Pima cotton, it's really nice and soft and squishy and shiny, and I really like this hat. I was expecting to use up a little bit more yarn for this hat than I actually did, but it's okay. I really like this yarn, so I'm planning on keeping it for a future project, maybe another hat. I've got a lot of hats now ever since I learned how to crochet. But yeah, I'm thinking about keeping this for another hat project in the future. And the final thing that I have to show you is another object in my stash that I don't love quite as much as I do the Ultra Pima yarn. This is Bernat Baby Sport Big Ball, I think it's called, in the creamsicle colorway. I'm not really sure if it's showing up on camera as it does in real life, but it's this sort of very, very bright pinkish orange color. I've never seen a creamsicle, but I don't really like this color. This is a yarn that I bought online off of Joann's, and I don't think that it looks the same as it did in the picture online. I thought it would be a little more not as bright, because this isn't a color that I would wear. I mean, it's besides the color, it's a pretty nice yarn. It's soft, even though it's acrylic. But yeah, it's a big ball of yarn. I'm not really sure what I'm gonna do with it. But I think I'm gonna be making something for my friends with this. So that's all I have to show you guys for this time. Oh, I didn't mention, before I forget, this hat, if you're interested, the pattern is called the 210-38 Tsubaki cotton hat, Tsubaki Tsubaki cotton hat. It's a free pattern on Ravelry by Pierrot, Pierrot. And yeah, I hope I remember to mention all the patterns. But yeah. So that's all I have to show you guys for this time. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope you enjoy it enough to come back for the next one. So I hope to see you then. Bye.